Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. Big settlement, big lawsuit involving real estate and commissions. And this came down in the last few weeks. And we're going to dig into that today with somebody who is, I consider our real estate expert here. He's the broker and co-owner of the Witry Collective Real Estate in New Orleans. And it's great to have him back here. Rector joins us on the program. Hey, Brett, how you doing?
I'm good, Steve. How are you today?
I'm smelling what you're baking.
Yeah, it's the holidays. You got to do a little baking during the holidays, I think. And certainly in my case, there's a level of expectation from my circle of friends, and so on and so forth, that I've got to come through with certain things.
Sure.
And it usually involves me spending a fair amount of time in the kitchen. So.
Isn't it so funny? Once you start doing that, people expect it and then expect it to be a certain way. So now you have to live up to it every time that a holiday or occasion comes up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And today I'm doing a special cake that I've made for special occasions for a number of years. And traditionally I make, for New Year's, I make lasagna and disperse that to friends and business associates and stuff. I may take a pass on that this year, just because the way the holiday sort of falls. But we'll see. One day at a time, one step along the way.
Lasagna for me never gets old. Love it. All right. This lawsuit, this settlement, really does change the rules in real estate. Tell us about it.
Sure. Recently the National Association of Realtors settled a lawsuit brought about as a result of sellers feeling that they were misled about paying commissions and what that looked like. That they were paying a fee to brokers agents that they hadn't agreed to. And I think a lot of it came about as a result of lack of transparency and lack of thorough explanation by a portion of the agent population across the country. I've been in the business for a long time. When I first started in the business, everything was done on paper, and we faxed. You never hear the word fax anymore. Everything's done electronically. And so real estate is a very personal industry, in my opinion. And that oftentimes requires you to, go to someone's house and sit down and meet with them and go through documents and explain things thoroughly and make sure that they understand. But I think, with reality TV and, certain programs that these maybe younger people have watched and consumed, thinking that, this is how real estate's done. I dress real fancy and drive a fancy car and go show pretty houses all day. Well, if only that were the reality. But it's not. It's a lot of work, and there are many moving parts, and there are many components to consider. And educating your client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, is crucial. And I think that's where the lawsuit came from, is that agents didn't take the time to explain to Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I am, me as your agent and my company that is representing your property are charging a commission. And the commission is always negotiable, and listing agreements should always say that. And agents should always use that terminology when they're explaining commission. So what I think people don't do is make the sellers aware that this is an incentive. You're paying me 5%, you're paying me 6%, whatever. You're paying my company, and I'm going to offer half of that percentage to a cooperating brokerage, a cooperating buyer's agent, as an incentive for them to bring their clients to your property and hopefully make an offer. And I think that too often people just would put their paperwork all in an electronic signature program and send it and say to the client, please read this and sign where it tells you to sign, initial where it tells you to initial, and whatever. And I mean, I know when I get a DocuSign document or a dot loop or SkySlope, I don't necessarily read the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody asks me if I did, I say, oh, sure, yeah.
We never do. We the terms and conditions, especially you buy a service, a subscription service, whatever it might be. That's that whole big thing. You scroll to the bottom and you check a box off that is supposed to be your signature, and you're done. But yeah,
right.
Rarely any of us do that. With these new laws that was the settlement from the judge. I think it was like a $400-something million settlement. What has changed? Okay, let's say I'm selling my house. Previously, it was this, and now with this settlement, it's that. What's this and that?
Well, I think it depends on the market condition of where you're working. Obviously, if you are in a market where there's still a lot of activity and you're getting multiple offers on properties, relatively short period of time after it's come on the market, I think you're going to get a little bit of more pushback from sellers who don't want to make that sort of additional financial consideration. We are required now when we are working with buyers to have a buyer's agreement. And again, this has become a stumbling block for a lot of people because it requires that you sit down and have a conversation and walk through that buyer's agreement with your buyers. And, so now you're negotiating with your buyers up front that I will represent you. And, whether it's one house or it's 30, there's some variation in there where, it can be for one property. And so you really have to explain that to them and try to get a commitment from your buyer or work to get a commitment from your buyer that you're going to help them find their house, whether it takes 3 days, 3 months, or 3 years. You're going to help them. You're going to keep that buyer's agreement. And that is the buyer saying, we can ask the seller to contribute to what is called a buyer's agent compensation. But if the seller refuses to do that, you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, agree to pay me this percentage of the sales price. And you have to have those signed now before you show anybody a property. That's a requirement. We are no longer allowed, if your MLS, the multiple list service, if your local real estate board is a member of the National Association of Realtors, you are no longer to put any information into the multiple listing service, the MLS, saying anything about commission. You are allowed to, market that if your seller is offering the cooperating commission, the buyer's agent commission. You're allowed to put that on your website. You're allowed to put that in your social media posts, whether you're doing an Instagram reel or Facebook. You can put it in those places, but you are not allowed to put it into the multiple list service. So, getting the word out there, some agents have been very, very creative. I follow several groups on Facebook. They have rider signs on the for sale sign that goes in the front yard that says, buyer's agents protected, or 3% BAC, buyer's agent commitment. So it's being inventive and creative and getting the word out there if your seller is willing to do that. But it's going to be, it is changing. It has changed and will continue to change the landscape of the industry. And I think it will also, be an additional, challenge for some people to work around, and I think it will bring about a certain level of reduction of people coming into the profession because it's one more step, and you open yourself up to litigation if you do this wrong.
Do you feel, this is what I'm seeing, and I'm wondering, from an agent, if you're seeing this, more and more people are becoming real estate agents in the last year and a half. I don't know what, like everybody I talk to, yeah, I just got my license. Is it happening more and more by you?
I think we've had a little bit of a slowdown in terms of people getting into the industry. Yes, there are still people coming into the profession every single week, but I think that there's been a bit of a slowdown. It's certainly not at the level of people when the market was hot everywhere and interest rates were low. People were jumping into the fray, so to speak, because they thought it was easy money. And and sometimes it is easy money. Sometimes it's the deal goes smoothly and what have you. But if you're doing it right, it's not easy money. It is a lot of time. And like I said earlier, it's a lot of moving parts. You've got different personalities and a different set of circumstances. Every property is different. Every property is unique. Sure. So it's not the glamorous sort of profession that it sometimes is portrayed to be. Whether you're watching Selling Sunset or $1 Million Listing or something like that, they make it look so easy and so very glamorous. And I'm like, yeah, I wish my life was like that.
Yeah. And you have those unforeseen setbacks when a situation arises where, you don't have a CO for that? Yeah. So it's sometimes I guess the deal can go fairly smoothly, but then again, you might run into these situations. Now we have to put like, for example, I just heard about this. A friend of mine does real estate, and turns out that there was never a CO on the pool. And yeah, I can hear your voice. And they had to put like $15,000 in escrow just in case there was an issue. And he says, personally, I think the pool is a little too close to the
property line.
Yeah, the back door of the house, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's either way, but yeah, a lot of times people want to maximize their property and then put it as close as they can on the property line. So yeah, there's all that pops up. That worked out in his favor. I want to find out from you your feeling with the industry, where we are in general. And I know you're in Louisiana, so it's going to vary from area to area, but where do you think we're going? Are prices going to start coming down a little bit? Do you think that we're going to peak a little bit more? What's your thoughts?
I think that I don't foresee there being a market crash. To sort of use that terminology, I don't foresee that being the case. I think in certain market segments or certain segments of the market, yes, you will see some softening of prices. I've seen that here in certain neighborhoods. Your most desirable neighborhoods in my marketplace the prices are still pretty elevated. I'm seeing longer days on market and more price reductions, but I'm not seeing a lowering of price per square foot tremendously in the more desirable parts of New Orleans, the historic areas, and so on and so forth. But I think overall, there's a housing shortage, and so I think that the demand is there and will continue to be there. I think if interest rates soften, and if I had that crystal ball, I'd be the wealthiest real estate agent in the country or probably in the world, but I don't. And there's predictions and so on and so forth all the time about real estate or interest rates, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they're in between. I think if interest rates soften and get down, say, below 6, we're still going to see an escalated market on a national level because there's demand for housing. So I think, and you've got to be able to gauge your market. You've got to, be able to sit down and analyze days on market and what is trending in your local market. And that's something very important to share with your sellers. The average day on market has increased from 60 to 90 days from that range up to 120 to 180 days. So having your finger on the pulse of what your market is doing, and oftentimes it is neighborhood area specific. Being able to analyze those figures is a very important part of your job.
What's the shortest amount of time that you were able to sell a property?
I had listed a property in August, and the first day of showings, I had multiple offers, and that was just this past August. That's an anomaly in my marketplace, our marketplace here in New Orleans. Typically it's a longer period of time, as I said earlier, but I think there are those properties very well priced. They've priced it very appropriately for the market. It's a very desirable location. It's in great condition. Those still will go in a relatively short period of time. It may be the first day, it may be 15 days. But that's a relatively short period of time given the market trend in New Orleans right now. But 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, 21, whatever, it was all the time. You were seeing, it was multiple offer situations, and that's how the market has shifted here in favor of the buyers. Back in 2021, when something new came on the market, you could go to let's say that they were showing it the first day of the first showings were on broker tour. Well, you can bring buyers to broker tour. Your buyer would walk in there and there'd be 10 other people in the property looking at it. And so your buyers oftentimes felt like they had a noose around their neck, is the terminology I use, because there's obviously an elevated level of interest in the market or in this particular property, and you're going to have to make a decision in a relatively short period of time. If they get a multiple offer situation, then you have got to be either, you as an agent and your buyers need to know, do we have any negotiating room here? And because at frequent times when there are multiple offers, the listing agent will, at the direction of the seller, will call for what is known as highest and best. And that gives you, by a certain deadline, tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So that gives you and your buyers time to confer and discuss, how badly do they want the property? Is there any wiggle room in the price point that they've offered, or are there things in the contract that they could waive, whether it's the appraisal or whether it's the inspections. I don't think that's ever advisable myself, unless your client is like, look, my father's a contractor, and if there's stuff wrong with it, I can get it taken care of. But I think, you've got to try to position yourself. If you're competing, you either make the decision to walk away. We've given it our best shot. This is not meant to be. Or you look at what you can negotiate with. What do you have in your corner that you can make a concession on or increase? And so, so I think that's a crucial part of it.
I want to flip it around for just a moment.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody is a real estate agent, or maybe they're considering getting a license and going down that path. What's your advice for somebody like that? What do you want them to know if you want to succeed?
I think choosing the brokerage that you making a very thorough investigation and a very thorough have very thorough discussions in choosing what company do you want to work for. And what do they offer in terms of compensation, but more importantly, what do they offer in terms of support and training? Because too many times, and this is kind of, again, goes back to, this is kind of my feeling is why we kind of have ended up in the position that we're in with the lawsuit, is that a lot of times if you join a smaller brokerage where the broker is also a working agent, how much time do they have to train you? what is the makeup of the office in terms of agents? How many other agents are there? What is their level of experience? Who can, is there someone there that can take you under their wing and sort of mentor you? You may be doing a lot of jumping and running, but if you get that information, if you get that knowledge, you get that exposure, that's priceless. That was really one of the key components of me launching my career here when I came here. Was aligning myself with a company that had very knowledgeable, very experienced, very gracious and giving agents. Because, I was new to the city and I didn't know neighborhoods as well as somebody who lived there all their life, obviously, and, the dynamics and so on and so forth. So, but I worked with, agents of all different levels of experience. And I have to say the vast majority of them were always willing to share and guide and invite you to, help them out. If you've got an agent who's got 30 listings and you can, you befriend them and they befriend you, and they may ask you to do open houses for you. Open houses, you don't necessarily, you too often I think buyers agents, newer buyers agents doing open houses think that they're going to get a bunch of buyers. That's not necessarily the benefit, in my opinion. I think I've only sold maybe one or two houses based on someone coming through during an open house. It's the exposure level. It puts your name and face in front of other people, in front of other agents, and in New Orleans, that's important. It's a tight-knit community. So get your name and face out in front of the other, the people who are in the profession that you're going to cross paths with at some point, probably. And then it also gives you exposure to the general public, because there are people who go to open houses who are looking, but they haven't chosen an agent yet. They see the open houses on Zillow and they're like, oh, well, this looks like a pretty house, so let's go look at it. It's open today. I get that a fair amount at open houses.
Wow. You told us your journey a few shows back, and, coming from another state and then going to Louisiana, I never thought about what a challenge that must have been, not knowing the area. So you're selling real estate in an area that you're not 100% familiar with in the beginning.
Right.
Right. Wow. I mean, I think that's a testament to your resilience and fortitude, because I try to visualize myself just picking, all right, I'm going to go to Miami. That's where I'm moving. I'm going to be a real estate agent. I don't know anything about Miami. So, yeah. Wow. Good for you. Thank you for bringing to light all of this today, especially that lawsuit that, it's got to be on the minds of a number of people. And I appreciate that. What's the best way for somebody to find you, Brett?
You can find me at Witry Collective or wcnola.com. And then my email, you can always email me. If you Google me, there is a famous, I think, baseball player with my first and last name. But if you Google Brett Rector or Brett A. Rector, you'll find me. I've been featured in, a few local publications and that are still available online to view. I've got a YouTube channel, so I'm around. I'm pretty visible. I think I've got a pretty visible presence. And so, I'm findable. But in spite of all that, the other thing that's really important about our business is, keeping in touch with your sphere of influence, your circle. Because, I'd say at this point in my career, probably 90 or 90, maybe even 95% of my business is referral from past clients, sending their family members to me, their friends to me, and so on and so forth. So, I think that's, but I think you can find me relatively easily.
And just to share with everybody,
general Google search.
Rector is your last name. And thank you so much for being here. Happy holidays to you and your family. And good luck with the endeavors in the kitchen going on right now.
Well, thank you. And you have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all of those things. Happy New Year, because that's right around the corner. And, it's going to be 70 here on Christmas Day, so I'm going to be enjoying that.
I'm grateful for where I am and what's going on in my life, but I am so jealous of where you are. It's a pretty nice environment to just be able to go, I think I'll go sit on the porch, on Christmas Day. Just beautiful properties at the Collective, so check that out. And we'll catch up soon. Thanks again, Brad.
Thank you, Steve. You have a wonderful holiday. I'll talk to you later.
You got it. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.